"Hey maid, fetch our drinks." The words sliced through the ambient jazz like a blade through silk. A ripple of laughter followed, sharp, expectant, rolling across the polished timber floors of the Sovereign Crown Ballroom in Melbourne's premier district. Sophia Chen didn't flinch. She stood near the champagne fountain in a tailored charcoal blazer, no flashy jewelry, no obvious markers of the empire she controlled. She lifted her phone to her ear, her gaze fixed on the woman gesturing dismissively from across the room. Behind that woman, a semicircle of men in expensive suits grinned like it was all entertainment. One actually clicked his fingers at her as if summoning a server. "Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or state in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and respect, hit like and subscribe. These stories matter, and we're glad you're here." Now back to Sophia. Her voice into the phone was steady, deliberate. "It's happening. Cancel the $1.2 billion Perth mining contract." The laughter faltered, not gone, but dented. They hadn't caught the words, only sensed the shift in her tone. Calm, certain, like she wasn't cornered but holding all the cards. "Which catering firm are you with?" the tall man called out, raising his wine glass. "Move quickly and we might throw in a decent tip." The woman beside him, expensive pearls, predatory smile, leaned forward. "Sweetheart, this function is for investors only." The ballroom string quartet didn't stop, but the atmosphere shifted. Eyes turned. A young journalist near the stage discreetly activated her phone's camera. The lens caught the scene through crystal glasses reflecting the chandelier light. Sophia's lips curved just enough to register, not enough to comfort. She'd encountered this entitled posture before. At 29, she'd been escorted from a boardroom she was meant to chair because security didn't recognize her face. At 35, she'd been mistaken for her own assistant during international acquisition talks. The man's voice came again, louder. "Security!" A uniformed guard glanced up from the entrance, uncertain. The matriarch of the group, silver hair, eyes like winter, snatched the VIP pass from Sophia's lanyard. The rip of plastic was sharp enough to pierce the quartet's melody. "Remove her immediately." Sophia didn't move. Her phone stayed pressed to her ear. "Priority Alpha," she said softly. Across the ballroom, the young journalist's grip tightened on her device. She didn't know the woman in charcoal, but she recognized that look. The kind that didn't need volume to command attention. The kind that, in moments, would flip the entire room. The chandelier seemed sharper now, catching edges of judgment in every glance. The group in designer suits hadn't shifted, but their voices carried like they owned the very air. "Which table hired you?" the tall man repeated, louder now. Not curiosity, command. The silver-haired matriarch added, "You're disrupting service. People are waiting." Sophia's eyes never left theirs. She adjusted her stance, calm, grounded. The phone remained at her ear. From near the stage, the journalist, Emma Walsh, 28, freelance business reporter, angled her phone higher, the camera lens finding gaps between champagne flutes. The red recording dot glowed. She wasn't just watching anymore. She was documenting. A server passing nearby slowed, eyes flicking between Sophia and the cluster of accusers. He said nothing, but his jaw tightened before he continued walking. The matriarch stepped closer, designer heels clicking against timber like punctuation marks. "Darling, this event is for investors who actually matter." She glanced toward a security guard, middle-aged, silver earpiece. "Please escort her out." The guard hesitated. Sophia caught that pause, filed it away. At 35, she'd watched hotel concierges hesitate just like that before claiming the penthouse suite was unavailable. That pause always emerged when policy met prejudice, neither side certain which would prevail. The guard finally approached, slow and cautious. "Ma'am, I'll need to see your credentials." "They're gone," Sophia said evenly, nodding toward the shredded pass in the matriarch's manicured grip. Emma's eyebrows rose. She adjusted her angle, capturing the woman holding torn plastic like a trophy. The matriarch smirked. We can do this politely or make it difficult. Sophia lowered her phone just enough for her voice to carry. You already chose difficult. Then she raised it again. Transfer the Goldfields capital to Meridian Group. Don't wait for signatures, Marcus. A ripple ran through nearby onlookers. Quiet gasps, shifting positions. One man in navy whispered to his wife, "Did she say Goldfields?" The wife's eyes widened. The tall man scoffed. Is this some performance? You think we'll fall for theatrics? Sophia's gaze didn't waver. No theatrics. Just business. Emma stepped forward, voice careful but clear. For the record, she was invited. I saw her name on the investor list this afternoon. The tall man laughed sharply. You must have misread. I didn't, Emma replied, raising her phone higher. And I'm not the only witness. Behind the circle, another voice emerged, a young catering staffer with a tray of mineral water. She's telling the truth. His words were quiet but landed hard. The matriarch's smirk wavered for just a breath. Sophia saw it. Everyone did. She let the silence hold, then said into her phone, Phase 2 is active. The guard froze mid-step. He didn't know what Phase 2 entailed, but he could sense it wouldn't favor those who'd summoned him. The ballroom atmosphere wasn't just tense anymore. It was electric, like the moment before lightning strikes exactly where it needs to. The music continued floating from the string quartet, but it felt disconnected, like it belonged to a different event entirely. The matriarch stepped closer, her perfume sharp, voice pitched for nearby tables to hear. People like you always try to infiltrate where you don't belong. Sophia didn't blink. The tall man took his cue, pulling a spare VIP pass from his pocket, someone else's, and holding it out mockingly. Here. Maybe this one will match whatever story you're selling. With deliberate slowness, he tore it in half, letting pieces drift to the timber floor like confetti. Gasps erupted around them. Emma was already circling to capture the moment, her phone steady despite adrenaline coursing through her hands. The matriarch turned to security. She's stalling for attention. Remove her now. The guard moved forward. Sophia held her ground. On what grounds? Fraud, the tall man answered instantly. She's impersonating someone she's not, trying to insert herself into a $1.2 billion transaction. That figure, $1.2 billion, hung in the air. Several guests at nearby tables stopped mid-conversation. One, a man in tailored navy, leaned to his companion. That's the size of the Goldfields deal. Sophia's lips tightened, not anger, but precision. She lowered her phone just enough to speak into the room. It was. The matriarch's eyes narrowed. Was. Sophia brought the phone back to her ear. Confirm complete withdrawal of capital. Redirect to Meridian Group. Alert both legal teams. Across the room, someone choked on their champagne. The tall man laughed, but it cracked halfway. You can't redirect anything. You're nobody here. From the back, the young catering staffer spoke louder. She's not nobody. You don't cancel a $1.2 billion deal unless you control a significant portion of it. The matriarch spun toward him. Mind your own business, boy. Too late. Emma cut in, her voice gaining edge. You made it everyone's business when you destroyed her credentials. The security guard stopped 2 paces from Sophia, eyes darting between accusers and the growing cluster of onlookers. Several phones were raised openly now, red recording dots blinking like small defiant warnings. Sophia's voice remained low, measured. One final time. Are you certain you want me removed? The matriarch didn't hesitate. Absolutely. She nodded at the guard. Do it. He took another step, and that's when Sophia shifted, not backward, but forward, closing the space between herself and the cluster that had been circling her since the first insult. The matriarch's posture faltered by a fraction, just enough to register in every watching eye. Sophia spoke without raising her voice, but every word carried. You just told the wrong woman she doesn't belong in the room she paid for. The storm had officially broken. The ballroom wasn't buzzing anymore. It was vibrating. Every glance, every whisper was current running through the space, feeding something none of them could name. Sophia held her phone steady, eyes never leaving the matriarch. "Proceed to phase 3, she said into the receiver. On the other end, a crisp male voice. Marcus, her chief of operations, didn't question, understood. Legal is standing by. Capital transfer in progress. The tall man scoffed, a brittle sound now. Phase 3? What is this, some game? Sophia's gaze slid to him for the first time. Not a game. An audit. The words didn't land like a punch. They landed like a filing cabinet dropped from height. All weight and inevitability. From across the room, Emma spoke again. If she's bluffing, why do you all look terrified? Her phone was angled to capture both Sophia and the accusers in frame. The matriarch shot back. Because this woman is trying to humiliate my family at a public event. No, Sophia corrected softly. I'm simply letting your actions speak louder than I ever could. The security guard shifted uncomfortably. He'd witnessed enough disruptions at high-profile events to recognize when something was unraveling, and this wasn't unraveling the way the accusers expected. Near the champagne fountain, the catering staffer whispered to another server, "She's in complete control. Look at her positioning. She hasn't moved unless she chose to." Marcus's voice returned through Sophia's phone. Corporate has flagged the Harrison family's portfolio for breach of good faith negotiations. Should I loop Meridian's team now? Sophia's eyes swept the room. More phones were recording now, some discreetly, others boldly. Yes. Make it public. The tall man laughed, but it was hollow. Even if you had authority, nobody cancels a $1.2 billion deal mid-gala. That's not how business works. That's exactly how my business works, Sophia replied. The matriarch stepped forward again, voice sharp. Do you even comprehend who you're addressing? Yes, Sophia replied, and this time her smile showed just barely. Do you? That landed. Not just with them, but with the ring of onlookers piecing together the truth. Emma took a small, visible breath. I think we're all about to discover exactly that. The guard hesitated again, caught between orders and the growing certainty he was about to make a career-ending mistake. Sophia lowered her phone. Her voice was calm, but there was steel now, like the moment before a verdict. You've called me a fraud. You've destroyed my credentials. You've attempted to remove me from a deal I architected. Through it all, I've been patient. She stepped forward just enough for the space to feel smaller, tighter. Patience is finished. Marcus's voice came through one final time. All parties notified. Press statement drafted. You're clear to proceed. Sophia looked at the matriarch, the tall man, those expensive pearls glinting under chandelier light. Perfect. Let's end this. The room held its breath. The revelation was imminent. The chandelier light seemed to bend toward her as if the room itself demanded a clearer view. Every phone lens followed now. Even the quartet had slowed, bows hovering above strings, caught in tension like everyone else. Sophia stepped into the open space between herself and the Harrison family. Her steps were steady, each click against timber sounding like a countdown. You've spent the last 20 minutes treating me like I wandered in by mistake, she began. Her voice was calm enough to carry without amplification, every syllable deliberate. You've accused me of fraud. You've called security. You've destroyed my credentials before 300 witnesses. The tall man folded his arms, attempting to smirk. The matriarch's jaw was set, but her fingers tightened around her clutch. The entire time, Sophia continued, you never once asked my name. She paused. That silence was heavy. Waiting. Emma caught the exact moment Sophia's gaze sharpened. Phones shifted in unison, red recording lights steady as heartbeats. I am Sophia Chen, she said, her voice rising just enough to reach the ballroom's edges. CEO of Chen Industries, architect of the very deal you were celebrating tonight. The $1.2 billion Goldfields acquisition you've been discussing. I built it, I funded it, and I just transferred it to your competitor. The words detonated. The matriarch blinked, lips parting to argue but finding no words. The tall man's arms dropped slightly. Gasps swelled from the outer ring of guests. One man near the back clapped once, sharp, before others joined, scattered but growing. Applause mixed with low murmurs. A tide turning in real time. You're bluffing, the tall man managed. Sophia tilted her head. Check your phone. Challenge and sentence rolled into one. He hesitated, then pulled it from his pocket. His eyes flicked to the screen. Color drained. The matriarch did the same, manicured fingers trembling as she read. Around them, others were reacting to the same push notification. Harrison Group loses $1.2 billion Goldfields deal to Meridian Group, effective immediately. Emma's camera caught the exact moment the matriarch's posture collapsed, pearls glinting as her shoulders dipped. The tall man turned away, but there was nowhere to go. I didn't need to raise my voice, Sophia said into the sudden quiet. I didn't need to summon press. You did that work for me. All I did was let you be seen. The security guard took a small step back, as if recognizing the line between duty and disaster. From the ballroom's far end, the catering staffer who'd spoken earlier whispered to a colleague, "She owns the room now." Nobody argued. The moment that push notification spread through the ballroom, atmosphere shifted from tension to rupture. Conversations fractured mid-sentence. Wine glasses were set down too quickly, crystal ringing like alarm bells. The tall man's face was flushed now, but not with confidence. His jaw worked soundlessly before he muttered to the matriarch, "We can fix this." "No," she snapped under her breath, eyes darting toward exits as if she could walk away from the humiliation. But there was no escaping the lenses already locked on her. Emma's phone didn't waver. She zoomed in, catching pearls against the matriarch's tightening throat. Across the room, the catering staffer set down his tray and simply folded his arms, a small, defiant smile on his face. The quartet had stopped playing entirely now, bows resting against their sides, watching the real performance unfold. A man in navy, one of the Harrison family's own advisors, stepped forward. "Sophia, this isn't necessary. We can renegotiate." Sophia didn't even turn. "You had your opportunity to speak with me when you thought I was a server. You wasted it." The security guard, still planted nearby, shifted his weight. "Ma'am, my apologies." His voice was quiet but carried in the sudden hush. Her eyes softened for just a second, not forgiveness, just acknowledgement, before she looked back to the Harrisons. The tall man tried again, desperation cracking his tone. "Look, we didn't." "You did," Sophia cut in, finality in her voice silencing him. "And now you live with consequences." From the side, Emma spoke to no one in particular, but her voice was recorded all the same. This is what happens when power walks in quietly. A ripple of agreement passed through onlookers. Some began clapping again, more steadily now, the sound swelling in the high-ceilinged space. Others simply watched, phones raised, knowing they were witnessing a moment that would travel far beyond the ballroom. The matriarch tried one last gambit. "We can make this right." Sophia stepped closer, not aggressive, just deliberate. Right would have been recognizing me before I had to announce myself. Right would have been treating a stranger with basic dignity. Now all you have is the deal you lost. Silence. The catering staffer spoke again, his voice firmer. "You don't get to dismiss someone twice." That line landed hard. Even the guard nodded once, slowly. Sophia straightened her shoulders. "This conversation is over. And so is your claim to my time." Phones kept recording as she turned toward the exit, the crowd's murmur following like a tide receding. The Harrisons stood frozen, pearls and suits looking suddenly like costumes from a failed performance. And for the first time all evening, Sophia was the only person in the room who didn't need to say another word. It started with vibrations. The tall man's phone buzzed twice, a persistent tremor against his palm. He glanced down and blanched, 3 missed calls from the Harrison board chair. The matriarch's clutch began ringing a second later, her tone slicing through air like a reprimand. She didn't answer. From across the room, the navy-suited advisor's phone lit up too. He stepped away, speaking in low, urgent tones. Even without hearing words, the message was clear. Damage control had begun, and it was already failing. Emma's camera tracked all of it, the shifting stances, rapid-fire texts, small tells of panic. She whispered into her mic, "The family's imploding in real time." Guests who had clustered around the Harrisons earlier now drifted away, polite smiles evaporating. One couple near the champagne fountain pivoted mid-conversation and joined the small crowd around Sophia instead, their body language announcing where loyalties now stood. The matriarch reached for the tall man's arm, composure fraying, "We need to get to the car." "Not yet," he replied through gritted teeth, eyes darting towards Sophia's retreating figure. But when he looked back, half the investors in the room were avoiding his gaze entirely. The quartet, silent since the revelation, began quietly packing instruments as if the event itself had ended. In truth, it had. The gala stopped being a celebration the moment Sophia took the floor. The catering staffer leaned toward another server. "They're radioactive now. Nobody wants to be seen shaking their hands." He was right. The Harrison inner circle had dissolved into scattered pairs, each person hunched over phones, sending messages that reeked of damage control. One woman, clearly a PR handler, hurried in from the hallway with a tight expression and tablet in hand. The tall man took one look at the screen she showed him and swore under his breath. Across the ballroom, Sophia's chief of operations, Marcus, was speaking quietly with a group of high-profile guests, Meridian Group executives. Their posture was relaxed, even friendly. Papers exchanged hands. Smiles returned. The message was unmistakable. Power had shifted, and it wasn't shifting back. The matriarch finally broke, voice a sharp whisper. "She's just destroyed us in front of everyone." The tall man didn't answer. He was staring at Emma, whose phone remained aimed at them like a spotlight they couldn't escape. Somewhere behind them, another guest muttered just loud enough for nearby phones to capture, "They brought this on themselves." And then came the sound that cut deepest, chairs scraping back as more guests rose to leave. Not just to follow Sophia, but to abandon the Harrisons completely. The ballroom was emptying around them, the space that had been theirs shrinking by the second. The collapse wasn't coming, it was already here. Sophia didn't rush. She didn't need to. Each step toward the exit was measured, deliberate, like she was giving the Harrisons time to feel every ounce of what was happening to them. Marcus intercepted her halfway, sleek tablet in hand. "All Meridian contracts are signed. Per your instruction, we've revoked Harrison's access to the Chin Industries investor portal." "Good," Sophia said. "Ensure every vendor and supplier in our network receives the memo before midnight." Marcus's fingers moved swiftly, drafting now. "Should I CC their legal?" "Bury them in it," Sophia replied without hesitation. The tall man, still anchored across the ballroom, seemed to sense the conversation's weight. His voice cut through fading chatter. "You can't just lock us out. We have agreements." Sophia turned slightly, enough for her words to carry without crossing the space. "Agreements built on respect. You voided that clause before we even started tonight." Murmurs rippled through remaining guests. One investor whispered, "She's freezing them out entirely." His tone mixed awe with caution. Marcus's tablet pinged. "Done. Vendor notices sent. IT confirms their logins are disabled." "Perfect," Sophia said. "And send the same to press. Word it as a values decision. Make it clear we don't partner with people who humiliate others publicly." From her vantage point, Emma caught the moment Marcus hit send, a small tap carrying consequences for years. The matriarch's voice finally cracked. "This is vindictive." "No," Sophia said, fully facing her now. "This is responsible leadership. If you think it's harsh, Consider how it felt to stand here and be told I didn't belong in the deal I built." The matriarch's lips trembled, but she said nothing. A server passed with champagne. Sophia stopped him with a gentle hand. "I'll take one. And send another to the Meridian table. Tell them congratulations." Across the room, Meridian executives raised glasses in acknowledgement. The symbolism was sharp. Celebration had officially moved camps. Marcus leaned in one final time. "Should I initiate portfolio review of Harrison's holdings?" Sophia's answer was immediate. "Yes. Flag anything tied to our network, then shut it down." The tall man took an involuntary step forward but stopped under the weight of every phone still recording. He knew one wrong move would be replayed online for weeks. Sophia set the champagne flute back on the passing tray, untouched. "I don't need to toast this. It was never a win, it was a correction." With that, she turned toward the exit again, the Harrisons frozen behind her, locked out of more than just a party. The notification hit phones like a wave. One by one, heads bowed over glowing screens, and the ballroom began humming, not with music, but with the low, electric chatter of breaking news. Emma read aloud for her live stream audience, voice sharp with scoop thrill. Chen Industries official statement. Partnership with Harrison Group terminated immediately due to breach of values and public misconduct. She glanced at her lens. "That's confirmation, folks. This isn't rumor, it's corporate fact." Across the room, Meridian executives stood, shaking hands with guests who minutes ago were orbiting the Harrisons. The migration was obvious. Fortunes, reputations, and attention flowing toward the new center of gravity. One older investor tapped his friend's shoulder. "Pull whatever you've got tied up with Harrison before Monday." The friend nodded, already drafting an email. A PR agent in Navy slipped into a corner, phone pressed to her ear. "Cancel tomorrow's press conference." "No, don't reschedule. We're in salvage mode now." Her eyes darted toward the Harrisons, then away as if proximity itself was bad optics. The catering staffer who'd spoken earlier passed Emma and murmured, "Feels like watching a building collapse in slow motion." She didn't disagree. Cameras weren't just on Sophia anymore. They were swinging to capture fallout. The Harrison cluster shrinking. Advisors scattering. The matriarch's gaze fixed on the floor. Sophia, meanwhile, was in quiet conversation with Marcus near the exit. No drama, no raised voice, just crisp directives. A few guests approached cautiously, introducing themselves, offering cards. She accepted some, declined others, but each interaction carried clear subtext. Alliances were shifting, and she was choosing them carefully. A young journalist from another outlet sidled up to Emma. "Is she always like this? So precise?" Emma kept her lens trained on Sophia. "This is my first time seeing her in action, but I'm starting to think precision is the entire point." The tall man's phone rang again. He ignored it, shoving it back into his pocket. The matriarch finally looked up, scanning for one sympathetic face. There were none. From the balcony above, a photographer captured a wide shot of the entire ballroom, emptying tables on one side, growing crowd around Sophia on the other. It was the kind of image that would make front pages. Not just a moment, but a map of power in motion. By the time Sophia began her final walk to the exit, the Harrisons were already being erased in real time. Their names were trending online. Not for a record-breaking deal, but for losing it in the most public way possible. The ripple wasn't stopping here. It was just beginning to reach shore. The conference room at Chen Industries' Melbourne headquarters was nothing like the Sovereign Crown Ballroom. No chandeliers, no champagne fountains, just glass walls, a long blackwood table, and the kind of silence that meant everyone knew exactly why they were there. Sophia sat at the head, flanked by Marcus on her right and two Meridian Group executives on her left. Across from them, a screen displayed latest market data. Harrison Group stock down 18% in the first hour of trading. Meridian CEO, a silver-haired woman named Patricia Wells, leaned back. "You've already gutted their biggest acquisition in a decade. What's next?" Sophia didn't hesitate. We ensure they can't rebuild using someone else's capital. That means tightening the network. Marcus slid a document across the table. This lists all shared vendors, partners, and subcontractors between Chin Industries, Meridian Group, and Harrison. We've already contacted 70% with alternative contracts. Harrison is losing supply lines as we speak. Patricia glanced at the list, then at Sophia. You're going for complete severance. I'm going for permanent exclusion, Sophia said. If they want to play the long game in our market, they'll start from scratch, and by then they won't have leverage or reputation to compete. A younger Meridian exec tapped his tablet. Press sentiment still swinging your way. If we move fast, we can frame this as industry-wide standard, zero tolerance for public misconduct. Do it, Sophia said. Make it loud enough that anyone considering siding with Harrison understands the cost. Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and smiled faintly. Investor Coalition just confirmed they're pulling additional $300 million from Harrison's remaining projects. Patricia chuckled. You've turned them into a cautionary tale overnight. Sophia's expression didn't change. Good. That's exactly where they belong. For a moment, the room was quiet except for the city's hum outside. Then Sophia added, one more thing. I want our legal team reviewing every pending trademark, patent, or licensing deal in their pipeline. If it aligns with our portfolio, we acquire it before they can. If it doesn't, we tie it up long enough so they can't use it. Patricia's eyebrow lifted. Aggressive. Sophia met her gaze. Necessary. The plan was brutal, surgical, and entirely within legal bounds. By meeting's end, Harrison's options had narrowed to suffocation point. As the Meridian team left, Patricia paused at the door. You know, most people would have settled for walking out of that ballroom with moral victory. Sophia stood, gathering her files. Moral victories are for people who want applause. I want results. With that, she turned toward her office, the Melbourne skyline waiting beyond the glass. A reminder that in her world, real power moves always happen after cameras are off. Melbourne was painted gold by the setting sun, glass towers catching fire in its light. From her corner office at Chin Industries, Sophia stood with hands in pockets, watching the skyline like a chessboard she'd already mastered. On her desk, a single envelope lay unopened, the embossed seal of Harrison Group impossible to miss. Marcus had placed it there an hour ago with quiet words, "It's marked urgent." Sophia didn't reach for it. Instead, she turned toward the wall of windows, her reflection overlaying the city beyond. Power wasn't in the letter they'd sent, it was in the fact she didn't need to open it to know what it contained. Pleas for reconsideration. Half apologies dressed as diplomacy. Maybe even an offer to buy back her favor. Behind her, the muted television played a news segment. Clips from the gala, headlines scrolling beneath. Sophia Chin sets new standard for corporate conduct. $1.2 billion deal collapse sparks industry reckoning. The anchor's voice was crisp. The message is clear. Humiliation in boardroom or ballroom carries a cost. Sophia took a slow sip from her coffee, steam rising like a signal into the air. Outside, the city moved on, traffic, lights flickering to life, another day folding into night. But for the Harrisons, time had stopped. Her phone buzzed. A message from Patricia Wells, vendor lockout complete. Trademark acquisition underway. They won't recover from this. She typed back 2 words, as planned. For a long moment, she simply stood there, watching light shift, letting quiet fill the room. She thought of the torn VIP pass, the smirk, the call to security. Then she thought of the way the crowd had parted as she walked out, how applause had grown, not because she demanded it, but because they recognized something undeniable. Sophia set her coffee down, finally picking up the Harrison envelope. She walked it to the paper shredder in the corner, fed it through without breaking eye contact with the skyline. The blades hummed, and the seal split into ribbons. Marcus stepped in just as the last shred fell. Press is asking if you'll give a statement tomorrow. Sophia shook her head. The statement's already been made. Outside, final daylight caught the tallest building in view, the one with Chen Industries' name etched into its crown. It glowed against the deepening blue, unshakable, unmistakable. And in that moment, Sophia Chen smiled, not for victory, but for the certainty that she'd never needed to prove she belonged in the room. She'd built the room.